The Cincinnati Bengals shocked us in week one in the wrong direction. Can they surprise us in week two in a good way? Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, covering your team every day on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Welcome back to the Everydayers, and shout out to all of you who make us your first listen. If you're new, please hit that subscribe button. That way you will not miss a beat throughout this Cincinnati Bengals football season, as we're expecting them to remain a good football team. When that happens remains to be seen. This episode of Locked On Bengals is sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs, who helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. And James, there will obviously need to be some adjustments for this team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week two, going from the biggest favorites in the NFL in week one to 5.5-point dogs, at least last time I looked, on the road in Kansas City to face a nemesis, a rival, one of the teams that they have a reputation of being the kryptonite for. But this game feels to me to have a very different vibe around it than previous games between these teams in the last 3 years.
Yeah, it does. And I was literally just talking to someone about this, and not a player, to be clear, but someone. And it's like, man, what? This is Bengals Chiefs. This has been the best rivalry in the NFL, Burrow Mahomes, over the past couple of years. But for the second straight matchup last year, because Burrow was out, this year, because of an underwhelming week one performance, it just doesn't have the juice leading into it, right? Kim Taylor-Britt says Xavier Worthy's a fast guy and you got to get hands on him at the line. People tried to blow that up, but I don't think it got the reaction that some of these comments have in the past, some heated rivalry comments that we've seen and from both sides. And that's what I think is interesting, because I get it. People are down on the Bengals right now, but I can confidently say, and I'll be shocked if they aren't, much, much better this week. I expect them to look like a football team this week. I expect them to handle a lot of the basic things that they shoulda, coulda, would have handled in week one. And if they do that, then there's no reason why they can't make this a game, which is kind of a silly standard for this team, right? You have Jamar Chase, who like an hour ago, he was talking in the Bengals locker room, says, yeah, we're the team to beat in the AFC and we need to act like it. Like, that's their mindset. But outside the building, we're wondering, even though I'm currently still at Paycor Stadium, wondering like, all right, well, are they going to be able to go to Kansas City and compete? Which hasn't been the standard for the past couple of years when these two quarterbacks, these two teams have linked up, Burrow and Mahomes.
Not a single person that I saw doing game previews on Thursday before we recorded this episode, James, took the Bengals in this game. There was pretty unanimous. We're taking the Chiefs. I think the NFL.com picks had one of their people picking the Cincinnati Bengals in this game. But if you enumerate the things that went wrong for the Bengals that need to go right in week two, that doesn't begin to scratch the surface of what they'll need to do to win in week two. The basics that you're talking about, tackling on defense when they're in position to make a play, that's the first thing, right? The second thing, or maybe that's the second thing, and the first thing is Joe Burrow playing more like the Joe Burrow we're used to, diagnosing the way that we're used to him, processing the way we're used to him processing, and making good decisions with the football instead of being sped up, dropping his eyes, dropping his throwing posture. That's definitely number one. I put those out of order. Number two, definitely tackling to me. But also in this mix is an element they didn't have in week one, which is now they have to defend the pass against a really good passer, against some skill guys that are pretty good in Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy. Whatever Cam Taylor-Britt says about Xavier Worthy, he is still a threat you have to account for, because he's shown the ability to do things with the ball in his hands, play up to that speed, and track the ball well downfield. So, yes, maybe you can disrupt him with a good jam, but you still got to get that jam on him. You still got to deal with him. And the Bengals largely weren't really challenged in the passing game last week. They just couldn't tackle in the running game. And we mentioned this in the crossover yesterday. If the Chiefs are able to run the ball for 6-7 yards of carry with their much better interior offensive line, and maybe there's a similar level of tackle play. I'm not too bullish on the Kansas City tackles, although Kingsley Suamata's future I am excited to see eventually. If they can run the ball, well, then you're back in the same situation you're in week 1. And the other thing, James, and this is my hot take for you that I got. Those things are all pretty obvious.
Jake with the hot take. Jake's take. All right, let's go.
I think that a lot of people are concerned about the deep stuff. And I'm not trying to minimize that. And a lot of people are concerned about play calling. And people know that if you've listened to this show in the past, I have been one of the people that's like, I don't think play calling was actually an issue. I do think it was an issue in week 1. I do think that too often they did not set up yard after catch opportunities, and they did not challenge middle of field defenders in cover 2 with high-low reads or stress those defenders and make them have to be wrong. So along those lines, this is the biggest disparity in the NFL in yards after catch teams in week 1. The Chiefs were among the best, if not the best yards after catch team in week 1. I think they averaged like 10 yards after catch per catch. The Bengals, if you throw out Zach Moss's screen, were like 2 yards after catch. And in this NFL right now, I am more concerned about the Bengals setting up effective yard after catch opportunities and capitalizing on yards after catch in a world where the average depth of target keeps going down and down and down than I am worried about the deep ball. Because I think those deep ball opportunities will naturally come along given the way they're constructed. I am not as convinced that without significant effort to discover yard after catch opportunities in this offense, that they will figure that out. And that's why if they're going to keep doing the stuff they're doing, I want them to find more yards after catch more than I'm worried about the deep ball.
Yeah, yak over deep ball. That's Jake's take. I like it. And in fact, at practice today, it's weird because you're super far away from me. We didn't really message before the show. At practice today, I was like, yeah, they got to hit on the intermediate stuff and turn that into explosive stuff. Like it's real easy to say, all right, well, put Jamar here and send him downfield, or put Jermaine Burton here who we can get to and send him downfield. And I know some people feel that way, but how many of their guys can win between 10 and 20 yards and then make a guy miss? And that's what they need. They need some guys that do that. So I agree with you. The Chiefs aren't going to the game plan for them is going to be, keep everything in front of you. Just like the Patriot, keep everything in front of you, come up, make the tackle, be disciplined, get pressure on Joe. Every team is going to have that plan until you hurt them in a different way. And so, middle of the field, yak is huge on anything. Short passes, yak, middle of the field, intermediate. But when I look at last week, we've talked about a lot about the deep ball. Can you just get some intermediate stuff going? Because I think that alone will turn into a few more explosive plays. And you're right. I mean, the Patriots, they just came up and made the tackle. It was like a magnet. It was like there's some kind of magnet gravitational pull that was pulling the Patriots defenders into whatever Bengal had the ball. Or maybe there was a magnet in the football. Investigate the Patriots. No, but you get my point. I mean, they had zero yak. I mean, it was wild when you really think about it. And that's why I do like that the Bengals, the vibes this week, they haven't panicked because I think they know that things can be corrected. And I agree with you because yak could mean explosive plays. Air yards are irrelevant. You know what's relevant? Explosive plays. I don't care how you get them. I don't care if they get them on the ground. I don't care if Joe runs for a 30-yard gain. However you're going to get them, you need explosive plays because they can be game changers. So I agree there. We have a lot to dive into with this matchup. Jake's take, yak over deep ball. I like it. We'll get to more coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is where you need to go right now. Because if you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. If you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That means you could find that candidate you're looking for before the Bengals play the Chiefs on Sunday, well before they even leave for Kansas City. So don't delay. Go to linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Again, post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, who's sponsoring this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. They're America's #1 sports book. And this time they've got something a little bit different for you available. Now through September 22nd, got to act fast. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And if that's not enough, you can also check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it to double your winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th, pregame moneyline bets. And that will be live starting Thursday, today as we record this on September 12th. You can check out your account page to learn more about your boost. So whether it's Bengals with the 5.5 points or Bengals on the money line, you can check it all out at FanDuel.com, where you can download America's #1 sportsbook. James, on the topic that we were just discussing, I wanted to kind of put a bow on that because you talk about what the Chiefs are likely to do in this game, which is going to be similar to what the Patriots did against the Bengals in week 1, which is similar to what Baltimore liked to do against the Cincinnati Bengals when Mike McDonald was their offensive coordinator. And we thought the Bengals started to figure that out before Joe Burrow's injury the second time those teams played last year, is they want to keep everything in front of them. Well, what do you think teams do to the Kansas City Chiefs, to the Miami Dolphins, with all of the speed that they threaten on Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, with the new addition of speed for Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes' proclivity and ability to get the ball downfield? They want to keep the ball in front of them too. And those offenses both find ways to get their playmakers advantageous matchups and get them on the run. And that is up to the coaching staff to put players in a position this week to take advantage of that. And so to put a bow on that, with the team the Bengals are playing this week, who gets a very similar approach from opposing defenses because they don't want to be beat over the top by Patrick Mahomes either, the way the teams don't want to be beaten over the top by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And obviously they do it a little bit differently stylistically and all those things. But the point is that these answers are there, and it's a matter of getting to them at the right time. And that's why for once, I am on the coaching staff and play calling a little bit here for a continued period of time on this podcast, instead of sitting here and saying, I actually think the plays were there and the players didn't make them, which is also true to some extent, but more often than I would like to see, I didn't think the Bengals got to the right calls into the looks they were getting. Yeah,
I think that's again, last week everybody was wrong. I don't think there was much to be right about, and that's what happens when you lose to a team like the Patriots. And now you could be like mostly right, and it's still not enough. And that's the interesting thing is I do think just being here, they are going to respond the right way. I do think coaching will be better. I do think we will see the offense move the ball at a much better level and just come out and play better. But you're dealing with a much different opponent as well. And so that's the delicate balance here. Because if they were playing the Patriots again on Sunday, guess what I would be doing, Jake? I would be picking the Bengals probably to win by 2 scores. Like, as crazy as it is, like, that's what I would do probably. And they're not. They're playing the opposite of that. Elite quarterback, not veteran, journeyman. As experienced of a head coach, I think the most experienced head coach in the NFL today, in Andy Reid, versus a first-time head coach. Like, there aren't many parallels anymore. And so if the Bengals are going to avoid that 0-2 start for a third straight year, yeah, the offense just has to be so much better. Because you can see, we haven't talked about the defense yet, but the defense, I know they've had some success against Mahomes, but there's a whole nother part of that at least I'm not confident in them being able to stop the run, and we'll get into that more. And so how do you combat that? The offense has to be able to move the ball consistently, generate explosive plays, put pressure on the Chiefs, and make them uncomfortable. And they've done that in the past. Even when they've gotten down, they've done that in the past, and they've been able to come back, obviously in the AFC Championship game or the games here at Paycor Stadium. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I think offensively especially, I think there's a lot of things that have to be much, much better this week, just for them to be in the running or in contention of winning the game going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and obviously the NFL is in any given Sunday league. Week to week variance is very high at times, and for some teams, and the Cincinnati Bengals have been a team that traditionally has started slow and then figured things out. And this year, with this opponent coming in week 2, the time to figure things out is now. And so it's not just individual players performing better, it's also schematic adjustments and all these things. Are there personnel adjustments coming? Well, T. Higgins remains a non-participant in practice on Thursday. It does not look like he's going to be able to suit up for the Cincinnati Bengals in week 2, which is obviously far from ideal. Logan Wilson went from a DNP Wednesday to a limited participant in practice on Thursday, said that his status is not in doubt in his mind when he spoke with at least Paul Dehner, and I'm not sure who else after practice. Apologies if you were involved in that as well, James. The other injury update that I'm looking at, there are 2, Chris Jenkins and Marius Mims. Jenkins remains a non-participant in practice after Zach Taylor left the door open for him returning this week against the Chiefs. He had that thumb surgery on Friday. The Bengals could remain shorthanded at the defensive interior, where they got solid performances from their depth last week. But like we've said several times, the IOL for the Chiefs is in a different world than that of the New England Patriots. And then Amarius Mims remains limited with that pec injury. And with 2 limited practices, I'm not feeling terribly bullish that there is a change coming at right tackle, to put it mildly.
No, Trent Brown starting. It would be a shock otherwise. And with Amarius, I kind of, about 10 days ago, I probably said something like that, like, he could be good and ready to go week 2. And I think he can. I would be surprised at this point, though, because he's been limited back-to-back days. You have the extra day going into the Monday night game. And it's almost like T's hamstring. It's very similar. Like T's hamstring, it's a wide receiver with a hamstring. I know he has the history, but throw the history out. It's a wide receiver with a hamstring. You need your hamstring to be right. You need your pec as an offensive lineman to be 100%. You don't want to risk it. You don't want this. You don't want to get him out there and then him re-aggravate this thing. And so he took a step forward this week. I wouldn't be shocked if they give him another week. And maybe it's a we'll see from Zach on Friday. And then let's give him until week 3. And then you can make him active. And you're probably more confident after he has a few sessions, few practices of team drills under his belt as well. Logan Wilson would be shocked if he didn't play, and would be even more shocked if T. Higgins did play. I think that's where they're at now. And so Trent Brown, by the way, I think that's obviously a huge storyline, because Chris Jones is going to be on that right side. He's going to be matched up. I would be shocked if he wasn't, with Alex Kappa and with Trent Brown. And so those guys obviously have to be ready for the challenge. Trent Brown told Elise Jesse that it was the worst game of his career. And so he was very aware of how poor he played, wasn't happy with it. And so he's looking to bounce back, and it's going to be a tough challenge for sure going up against Chris Jones, I would say a lot.
Yeah, because Chris Jones just picks where he lines up. Seems
Yep.
He has free reign to be like, I want this one. And then he just moves guys around. And he's been doing that for a while now. Chris Jones is obviously the thing that you game plan for with the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Very interested to see the Trent McDuffie, Jamar Chase matchup as well, because I think McDuffie has played Jamar the few times they've gone against each other. Some of the best football against Jamar Chase you've seen on a consistent basis from a corner that he's seen multiple times. And that's a tough matchup for Jamar Chase, I think. But Jamar obviously can get his against anybody. And so that will need to be the case this week. But given that these guys are injured and they've got the matchup questions that we talked about, and we got into some of those key matchups, and we'll talk about potentially some more of those key matchups. I wonder where the personnel adjustments could come from. Is it Eric All? Is it Jermaine Burton? Do those opportunities on the offensive side of the ball change? A lot of people also asking about Jordan Battle. Sorry, got Jalen Davis and Jordan Battle crossed up there. Don't know why anyone would be thinking about the practice squad corner, but Jordan Battle has also been a question. So we'll discuss some of those potential personnel changes that we may or may not see. I don't think the expectations are really there, but are those adjustments that would help the Bengals, along with some predictions to finish up the show coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest way, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's you against the numbers with PrizePicks. All you do is pick more or less on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is awesome. You check it out. They invented flex play, by the way, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. So let's say you have 5 players and you hit more or less and you get them right on 4 of the 5. Well, the flex play allows you to double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. It's so much fun. By the way, projections, you could say, all right, we're going to pick Tyreek Hill for more than 90 receiving yards and Joe Burrow for more than 263 passing yards. Boom, 2 to 6 projections and watch the winnings roll in. And you can download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive your $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game.
James, there's been some clamoring for more Jermaine Burton, not just from Bengals fans, but also questions from, Steve Palazzolo on his podcast, from Trevor Sikkema on his podcast with Pro Football Focus. It's making national level podcasts and those discussions. Certainly Bengals fans are curious. And at the same time, we got Mike Santagata, who we had on the show earlier this week, write a whole feature on why 12 personnel might be a good shift for this Bengals offense, especially in the absence of T. Higgins, with what they got out of that run game in week 1. So when we're talking about personnel changes, I think those two are the big ones. There's been some smaller discussion around Jordan Battle. I don't think the Bengals are close there right now. Dejon Anthony is the first safety off the bench in their sub packages there, and we might see more of that this week to match the Chiefs' 12 personnel, counting Travis Kelce as kind of a hybrid receiver tight end. But what do you think about this Jermaine Burton idea? And Jamar Chase was asked about him a little bit after practice on Thursday as well. Is this a week where we see more opportunity for Jermaine Burton?
Well, Chase praised him, said he's certainly more comfortable with the playbook now and getting it down. And hopefully that does mean an opportunity, because you talk about downfield threats, yak threats in general. I think Jermaine Burton can help you in those areas. And he just gives them a different dynamic if he knows where to go, if he can make the right reads, if you trust him, there's so many ifs, because this offense is hard to learn. It is. It's not easy. Andre Yotsevach moves to the slot when? Year 2. Charlie Jones, year 1, learning the slot. There's a lot in there. Jamar Chase is someone that I think is going to move into the slot. We saw that last week. Is going to move into the slot. And so what that does, especially without T. Higgins, is, and Yoshi can play both, but is there a role for Jermaine Burton to come in and played 4 snaps last week, ran 1 route? Maybe he plays 8 snaps and runs 4 routes. Maybe he plays 8 snaps and runs 7 routes. Maybe it's 8 go routes. I don't know. But yeah, could there be an opportunity for him? I hope so, because if there is, that means that he's pushing forward in a big way and doing the right things and earning the trust. And if that happens, that there's no reason for the Bengals to punish Jermaine. They want him to go out there and have success, especially without T. Higgins. They would love for Jermaine to be ready. And so we'll get our answer on Sunday, and that would give them such a dynamic that would be nice to have, especially with T. Higgins out. Potentially out, but I assume T will be out, just to be clear.
If nothing else, it would change the way defenses have to account for that side of the field, because he's a known field stretcher, or could put the fear into or keep them honest, whatever phrase you want to use. And if you get him and Jamar on the same side of the field and defenses have to account for both, and you can create that conflict with a safety or with a linebacker on dagger, on some sort of concept that allows you to punish cover 2. I don't think they called dagger once. Maybe there was once. Maybe the Jamar Chase go ball in the middle of the field, the little post go, whatever it was, the slot go ball in the middle of the field. Maybe that was dagger. Can't remember. But those guys can maybe do some of those cover 2 beaters. And that's a place where they really miss T. Higgins. If you've listened to the show a long time, you've heard us talk about and me praise T. Higgins' ability to run those in breakers at a really high level. And that's like the dig on dagger, which is a go to clear out, and a dagger behind and a dig behind it, like a 15, 20 yard in behind it, 15 usually yard in behind it. That's a big play to beat cover 2, and I didn't see much of that. So with Jermaine Burton and Jamar Chase together out there, there's a real possibility that you can challenge coverage defenders in a different way. And maybe you could do that with Andre Yosevach. Maybe you could do that with Charlie Jones as well. But Jermaine Burton's ability that he showed in the preseason and in college to win the ball downfield could give you another element that you're missing. And so if he can get that opportunity, like you said, James, that would be very promising that he's taking those steps in the right direction. The other one is a 12 personnel idea with more Eric All. And I wonder how much he'll be able to work into just getting on the field in 11 personnel too, where Drew Sample remains the TE1, but Mike Gesicki and Tanner Hudson, who was limited on Thursday, by the way, for those of you keeping track, those guys are getting a lot of snaps as a receiving tight end right now, but Eric All presents more of that dual threat ability. Not that we've seen it a ton yet as a receiver, but I wonder if that is a transition that we start to see over the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, I think my big question there is how much do they trust him in the passing game?
Yeah.
And again, it's that trust. They clearly trust him as a blocker. They clearly think they can get in that and run it. But are they willing to, like, first play of the game, you open up in 12 and you throw it to Eric All. He acts like he's going to block. It's a little play action, and then he runs out and you throw it. I love the idea of that. Are they comfortable with that? That sounds like a first down to me, by the way. That's what that sounds like. So you never know. But are they comfortable now? Is that something that they're a week or two away? Are we just a bit early on it? It's really no different. Like I know people think, oh, well, Jermaine, he's got to earn the trust. And no, all these rookies do. And I think Eric has, to this point, with what we've seen in passing game, maybe that's a week or two away, or maybe it is Sunday. And what a dynamic it would be if you could have this guy that could do both and give you that. And who knows? But I totally agree there. And then outside of that, do you want to get the Jordan Battle here? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure much changes. Like maybe he'll get on the field for defense and not just special teams this week. But I don't think Von Bell is in danger of losing his job right now or anything like that after last week. I think that they want to be better tackling. They want to be better, certainly in coverage in some spots. But are you bringing in Jordan Battle to guard Travis Kelce? Like I'm not sure why you would do that this week or make that change.
It still looks like that's Dejon Anthony's package. Like he's the next safety off the bench. He has been. He got on the field on defense a couple times in week 1. Sure. I would be surprised to see a change there. I think that they are relatively happy with the way that things went on the back end outside of tackling, which was obviously an issue. Obviously, you would prefer that Geno Stone comes down with that interception opportunity in the end zone when he had it. But I don't think that they're interested in throwing a wrench into things right away. And the fact that Dejon Anthony was the guy coming off the bench for that extra safety, 3 safety package in week 1, I just think that the gap between perception and between the public and the coaching staff on Jordan Battle is fairly large at this point.
And maybe, especially this week, you have the speed that the Chiefs have. Maybe you get DJ Turner on the field at corner and Dax is guarding Travis a decent amount. Like maybe that's how you go. Like that's not crazy because now you have plenty of speed on the field. And so I don't know. I think it would be surprising. Maybe he'll get a few defensive snaps. I'm not saying that, but I don't think that he's moved up past anyone, even though people are, at least some on social media, are frustrated. Look, if they tackle better, I think their defense plays much better last week. In this defense, they've always cooked up a decent plan or a good plan against Patrick Mahomes, even when they didn't have Joe Burrow last December. So can they do that again? That's the big question. And honestly, the other question here, Jake, from a defensive standpoint, Sam Hubbard, kind of rough last week, right?
That's where I was going next.
Wow, great minds. He's been really good against the Chiefs. Like some of his better games have been against Kansas City. And so they need Sam Hubbard to be the 2022 Sam Hubbard against Kansas City.
Yeah, they're going to need to do a better job of capitalizing on their pressures this week. And that means probably that Sam Hubbard needs to play a better game or Joseph Ossai needs to play more. It's very hard to get Patrick Mahomes down in the pocket compared to Jacoby Brissett. Said that on the crossover yesterday. Jacoby Brissett did a really good job under pressure in week 1. The Bengals had the best pressure rate in the NFL in week 1 and one of the worst sack rates, either second worst or worst sack rate in the NFL in week 1. Those two things usually don't go hand in hand. That doesn't make any sense. And so that needs to be a lot better this week as well if they want to have a shot in this one. James, do you have a prediction quick before we get out of here?
I mean, I think the vibes are eerily similar to last year where they play much better week 2, but come up a tad short. And so, the run game from the Chiefs, that interior of the offensive line, the fact that they can win in a bunch of different ways, that doesn't even include Patrick Mahomes, really. It's tough. So it's an uphill climb. That's how I'm leaning now. But I don't think that it would be shocking if Joe Burrow bounces back, this offense bounces back, the defense has a plan for the Chiefs, and you look up and the Bengals win. It would not shock me. But I think it's an uphill climb, and they have a lot of things that need to go their way. Maybe they will go their way on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll talk about how those factors play out after the game on Sunday, late window game in Kansas City. We will have you covered here on Locked On Bengals afterward with a recap of what goes down and how that pertains to the rest of the Cincinnati Bengals season, because the more examples and data points we get, the more we will project things into the future. That is the nature of things, but more than anything, trying to avoid that 0-2 start and a big opponent to avoid that 0-2 start with the Bengals' first road game of the year. Until next time, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.